Hi, Bob Loeffler here. Welcome back to the Fearless Agent Success Series, and I want to talk about goal setting. You know, it's funny, we've all been to goal setting seminars, haven't we? We've learned all the ingredients about goal setting. It's got to be attainable, it's got to be visualized, it's got to be something you want for you, it's got to be specific, it's got to be broken down into little tiny steps. All of that is true. Every single real estate coach talks about goal setting. What they never talk about is hitting those goals. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I want you to set goals that make sense, and I want you to hit those goals. So when I do a coaching call with somebody who's talked to me for the first time, or they signed up for coaching in the middle of the night, and then the next day we have this initial call, I always kind of give them the same goal if they're a brand new agent. So I give them the goal of doing 40 listings in the next 12 months, in their first 12 months in real estate if they're brand new. And a lot of times they think, oh, I can't hit that goal. And I would call that a healthy level of self-doubt. That's a good character trait. When somebody says, oh, I'm sure that'll be no problem, I'm sure I could do 300, then I think, well, that's a little bit maybe overconfident, but a little self-doubt's a good trait. So if you have that, nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to kind of break something down for you, and I'm going to have to pick a sales price to go with, okay? So I'm going to use, and I want you to write this down, the sales price, average sales price of $150,000. So I'm using that because in some parts of the country, maybe that would be your average sales price. In other parts, maybe you'd have to multiply that by 10. But maybe yours is double that, so you would double it, or maybe it's 50% more than that, which would be $225,000. But you can do the math after, but we're going to go with 150 for this exercise, okay? So if your average sales price is 150,000 or a multiple of that, and let's assume that you have a 3% commission on a side. Now, I always encourage all fearless agents to charge 7% because they're worth it and keep 4%. But for this exercise, we're just going to use 3%. So 3% of that is $4,500, okay? So if each time you have a closing is $4,500, gross closed commissions is what we're talking about. So would it be fair to say that if you give 3 listing presentations, one of them will list with you and you would get a 3 or 4% side? Okay, so we're going to use that. That would be normal if your ratio of you go on 3 listing presentations and you only get 1, I'd be very happy for you, very proud of you. You could do much better than that probably, but let's just say minimum, that's what it's going to be. So that means that every time you go on a listing presentation, you've earned $1,500. So write that down. Listing presentation given equals $1,500. So isn't it probably true that you would have to schedule 5 to have 2 cancel, and then you'd go on 3? So every listing appointment you schedule doesn't turn into a meeting. Sometimes they cancel. So it has been my experience that a normal ratio would be you schedule 5, 2 cancel, you go on 3, and you get 1 listing, okay? So let's say that happens. So if you schedule 5 listing appointments, each one of those that you scheduled then would be worth $1,000. So I want you to think, every time I schedule a listing appointment, I've earned $1,000. Now, a real listing appointment is not this baloney that other coaches teach, these pop-by, these visits, these chit-chats. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a fearless agent listing appointment where the seller knows why you're coming over. Both of if it's a husband, wife, or 2 partners, they're both going to be home. So write both home. That's one ingredient. They are people who have to sell, or they're going to sell. They would sell if people. These are real sellers, okay? These people are nice, sane, smart people. You've ascertained that on the phone. They have to sell, or they're going to sell, guaranteed. The only question is who's the agent going to be when they sell. and they're willing to sell it at fair market value, whatever that turns out to be. So they're real sellers. You've booked a 2-hour, because you're not going to get a listing listed in one visit in a whole lot less than 2 hours. But I don't want them leaving, or one of them leaving. It'll always be the decision maker that leaves halfway through your listing appointment. So it's a 2-hour book slot, and we teach you how to trick them into that, so that's not going to be a problem. And then you've gathered all the information on the phone to do a complete market analysis. Okay, so you know all the things about their house, and then let's see. Oh, you know how much they think their house is worth, and you know how much they owe, and we teach you how to do that. There's a video on my website that would teach you how to do both those things. So you've got all the ingredients. Those are 5 basic, well, kind of 6 ingredients of a real fearless agent listing appointment. So when you're going on the listing, there's a great likelihood that you're going to get it listed. So all the ingredients are in place. So each one of those is worth $1,000, okay? So if you think about it, how many hours would it take you if you called, let's say you called your sphere tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and you were asking for referrals, and maybe one of those sphere people, your friends, your acquaintances, your relatives, maybe they're thinking of selling their house, and you might book a listing appointment. But after you're done with them, then you would go to any new for sale by owners. And then when you're done with them, you would go to any new expireds or cancels that show up today. And then when you're done with them, you would go to your follow-up calls from previous cold calling. And then when you're done with that, you just cold call for the rest of the day until you've booked a listing appointment. How many hours? So you just write down how many hours, if you did that on average every day, how many hours would it take you to book one listing appointment? So if your average sales price is $150,000, and again, if it's a multiple, you would figure that out. But if it took you 2 hours, you'd be earning $500 an hour. And most fearless agents would tell you, with the words they have, with the resources they have, the systems they have, it probably takes about 2 hours. But what if it took you 4 hours? Well, you'd be earning $250 an hour, wouldn't you? That's $500,000 a year salary if it was 40 hours a week, just so you know. That's more than the President of the United States makes, I believe. 6 hours. What if it took you 6 hours to book one listing appointment? Well, you'd be making $150 an hour. What if it took you 8 hours? What if it was like a factory job where people get sweaty working all day, 8 hours? Or there's landscapers in my neighborhood are working an 8-hour shift, or the people in an office building sitting in a cubicle for 8 hours. Realtors won't do that, of course, but regular people will do that for money. But that you'd be making $125 an hour. That's $250,000 a year if you did it 8 hours a day. Would you be willing to do it? That's the question. If your answer is yes, you have what it takes to be a fearless agent. If you have what it takes to do it 2 hours and book a listing appointment and make $500 an hour, you have what it takes to be a fearless agent. So breaking down the goal is, I think, motivational, hopefully, for you. So that's a part of goal setting. So the other part is take your annual goal money-wise that you want to make, okay? And then figure out the number of closings you need and divide it by. But here's a little rule of thumb. There are 40 weeks in a realtor year, okay? You thought there was 52. Oh no, there's not 52 weeks in a year. Of course not, because there's Christmas. And Jesus was only born on one day, but we over-celebrate that even by his standards, wouldn't you agree? Oh, and then there's your birthday. And that's a 2-week extravaganza. And then I got to get you out of rehab or jail or whatever, so there's some weeks off. So I think there's about 8 weeks worth of non-working weekdays in any realtor's year. So that gives us a 10-month year. So, and that also makes my math easy. And since I dropped out of high school, I need that. So that's why we came up with that shtick. But if you do 40 listings a year, that would be 1 a week for the working weeks in a year. Okay, so you only need 1 a week. Maybe that would help you hit your income goal. So you do the math on that. And to do that, there's 4 weeks in every month, and you need 5 listing appointments scheduled per week. So your goal should be maybe 5 scheduled per week. That's 1 a day. I don't want you working weekends. I don't want you working Saturdays or Sundays. Fearless agents don't need to do that because they can get the whole job done in a 5-day week. And you can take those 2 weekend days, no texting, no emails, no phone calls about real estate, because we have a system for that. So you work a 5-day week, schedule 1 a day, and that's all it takes probably to make a very good living, especially if you're charging 7% and keeping 4%. So you do the math and figure out what that would be. So that's the essence of goal setting, and we're going to be talking more about it in the future. But I want to thank you again for joining us on the Fearless Agent Success Series. And you can call me anytime at 480-385-8810. Again, listen to the podcast at fearlessagentpodcast.com. Go to my website at fearlessagent.com. Watch all the videos there. Go to fearlessagent.tv. Hit the subscribe button. Immerse yourself in all things Fearless Agent. And pretty soon, you will be a Fearless Agent. Thanks.